It's Emil. Let me check. Yeah, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Hey, how are ya? Welcome to the Takeout, Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. A couple of shout outs to people. Hey, congratulations to Phil Yu, the angry Asian man. Won a Peabody. Not a Mr. Peabody, but an actual Peabody. So congratulations. I just was looking at my social media. I've been off social media for a while. I don't know. You shouldn't be off social media for a while. You should, you glance at it and got a number of cousins having birthdays. Isa, happy birthday, Isa. Oh, Olivia's having a happy birthday. Ron, my dear friend Ron, happy birthday, Ron. See, you tune in early to the show and get the lagniappe and you see, oh, Emil, he's not antisocial. No. I mean, Emil might be in a closet while everyone else is doffing their masks and walking around like normal. And, you know, he's in a closet with a gong. That doesn't mean he's antisocial. Of course not. It just means that, well, I don't know what it means, but here he is. He's saying happy birthday to people. Happy birthday to Wayne. Wayne, my old friend Wayne. You should really stay away from those king crab legs, though. Really. I mean, for your birthday, maybe, but honestly, I mean, you'll live longer and you'll be happier, I think. Hey, look, welcome to the Takeout. This is show number 273. We're here Monday through Friday, as the prompts say here, 2 p.m. Pacific live. And if you're here, if you notice in your sundial, this isn't a daylight savings time check. It's check your sundial. It's Emil. It's like 1:54 p.m. Pacific. That's, you're giving us 6 extra minutes. Yeah, don't tell the union, okay? Do not tell the union that. I mean, that would be my downfall. Well, you let Emil Amok talk for 6 extra minutes. I think we'll have to file a grievance. So anyway, that's my old broadcasting days. When working with Emil was called Emil penalty, of course. So we're here. I'm just happy it's the end of the week. And we've had a grueling, bruising week. I'm going to talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson. How many times when you first saw her name, you wanted to say Ketanji Jackson Brown or something like that, right? You'd be singing Dr. My Eyes if you were expecting the reggae version of Jackson Brown. But no, Ketanji Brown, we know the name now. She is the people's favorite. And you know why? It's because the Republicans beat her up. They were mugging an African-American woman on television as it's beaming out to everyone. And that Cruz Holly, Lindsey Graham stunt is going to backfire because everyone has seen it. We saw it on Tuesday. We saw it on Wednesday. The legit people came on Thursday to sing her praises. Her people were on day one, introducing her. 4 days of that. I hope she's enjoying her weekend because I think the total number of hours, 25 hours, 30 hours, something like that, of this constant grilling. And I'll read from my column on the Aldev blog. I'll do that today. One of the things, some people, I saw someone post, do any white people like Ketanji Brown? White people with a sense of justice do. I mean, my goodness, her husband is Caucasian. I mean, Ketanji Brown Jackson understands her role in society vis-a-vis the whole civil rights era. And I explained that in my column. So we'll talk about her. We'll talk about Ted Cruz, a little about him, the Wall Street Journal. Of course, we'll talk about Judge Thomas's wife in that story. And I'll bring on Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, the College of Ethnic Studies San Francisco State professor, who is sort of my companion on Fridays. We'll bring him in momentarily because he's got some insight on Asian American history, Asian American politics, some, he's got a law degree. He's Filipino American history, Asian American history, one of the first, if not I don't know if he's the first, but when the College of Ethnic Studies, which is the first College of Ethnic Studies in the nation, when it was formed, he was there. Student strike, San Francisco State. So Dan's coming up a full Friday show on the Lanyap section. I just want to say something about coming up this weekend, the Academy Awards. And the Academy Awards, it's tough if you don't get to see the movies, right? If you don't get to go out and, brave the crowds. I don't want to see blockbusters because there's too many people, and I'd rather see some arty film or something with no one in the theater, and then I'd go to the theater. But actually, of all the films, I saw a couple that were on, I guess they're all on video now in the last week, so everyone sees them. And so you can develop a rooting interest. I like Will Smith. I like Will Smith in King Richard. I kept waiting for him to, I like it, but was it the most memorable thing I saw? No, it wasn't, but I'm sort of rooting for him to win. Of course, I'm a Nicole Kidman fan, so I'd like to see her win Best Actress, but I don't think it was her best role. I'm a big Jessica Chastain fan, but I did not see her film. So it's kind of weird. I'm just going through this thing and I'm saying, what am I strongly pulled to? Who am I going to root for the Oscars? I will say this. The one film that I hung in there and I saw not just once, but I saw twice because that's how much I liked it. And gave me a sense of art, gave me a sense of the filmic experience, the artistic, theatrical, dramatic experience. It's nominated twice for both, what's the category? International Feature and Best Picture. And probably will win just in one category, International Feature. But I think it should win Best Picture. And that would be Drive My Car. I can't help it. It was mesmerizing. You want to bail out. You think it's boring. Thank goodness to get the sex parts up top. I mean, it's not really a sex part. I mean, it's tastefully done. It's erotic in a way at the beginning, but it really has to do with feelings, and it goes deep. It goes deep, and you're thinking, I don't know, I can't believe I'm hanging out with these people for like almost 3 hours. But it's like a slow burn, and then the film is in Hiroshima, right? There's the explosion, and you get it, and it's like full, and it's like, oh my God, what a piece of art. I mean, I saw part of West Side Story. It was all right. The young woman who stars in it is half white, half, I think she's a hybrid, They're the new half, biracial actresses. They've turned our exoticism into a good thing. Put them on this big screen. I've got daughters who are half Filipino, half white. I mean, I'm into that. I see her natural beauty. I just think that, West Side Story, it didn't do it for me. But Drive My Car. Well, actually, the first shot of West Side Story. If you see the first shot of West Side Story, and then it's amazing. It's a single take. So I like that, but what can in a Dune I wish I'd seen on the big screen, but and Coda is about sign language, right? American Sign Language folks. It's about the deaf. I just haven't gotten myself to a theater to see that. So maybe before Sunday I will. But right now, Drive My Car was my most mesmerizing film experience, and I got to root for that. I got to root for Drive My Car. All right. So, Emil Guillermo's Takeout. We're into the 2 o'clock hour. Welcome to the show. We've done 273 of these. Thank you for being here. You know, I've been a news person, a columnist, a talk show host. I actually did a talk show. I had a talk show in the Washington, D.C. area at the old WRC before it went sports. And it was news talk radio there, in the middle of the dial, middle of the AM dial. And I was on during the Clarence Thomas hearings when Anita Hill was brought up. And man, was that a great talk radio companion to have to be on when that was on. You just said, well, and what do you think about Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill today? And then the phones would light up. So I have to admit, I had a tinge, just a sentimental feeling about what I experienced watching that hearing and then watching Ketanji Brown Jackson this week. I watched most of it. I was semi-glued. I had some other things to do, but I was on it. And I think I saw more of it than most people. And then I went back to C-SPAN to watch it again. That's how much I really enjoyed watching Ketanji Brown Jackson. But I want to bring in my, my ALDEF column. Here's my ALDEF column. Well, I can't really see it. But go to aaldef.org/blog and you'll see my column, which I wrote. Asian Americans should see ourselves in Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. Notice she was purple on the first day where she introduced herself, her friends introduced her. She was red on the second day, which is when she kind of got beat up. And I was ready to write something then defending her. But people I wrote for said, well, wait a minute. It could get worse. I said, it can't get any worse. Day 3, it got worse. That she was wearing red that day, or blue that day. So from purple to red to blue. And then day 4 were, I didn't see shots of what she wore that day, but her advocates, other outsiders were there to talk and sing her praises. But so I wrote this column when day 4 was done, pretty much during day 4, and published it today. Basically, yeah, Asian Americans should see ourselves in Ketanji Brown Jackson, because I'm ready to say she should be the next Supreme Court Justice of the U.S. Just start calling her KBJ now. She's going to be that iconic. She's going to be there a long time, and she's going to make a mark. It's going to be history. I mean, she's been called, by virtue of her legal experience, the most qualified nominee for the Supreme Court in history. But of course, she would have to be, because as we know, people of color always have to be twice as good to overcome the racism we face. That's just a given. Now, Jackson is maybe not just twice as good. She's like 5x, 10x good. That's how special she is. So no one, and this is really, I think, one of the reasons why, how can you deny this woman? No one in the current court has her depth, her range, from public school to Harvard Law, SCOTUS clerk, public defender, sentencing commission, district court judge to court of appeals judge. That's a heck of a resume for anyone. Now, mea culpa, I admit I was wrong about Jackson. When President Biden announced her as his nominee, I didn't know much about her, really. And even though she's been before the committee 3 times before, I didn't really pay much attention. And I wondered why an Asian American wasn't picked for the slot. African Americans have Clarence Thomas. Of course, African Americans and most of the American public wasn't expecting Clarence Thomas and his wife, too. More on that in a bit. But there's never been an Asian American Supreme Court justice ever. But after what Jackson went through at the hands of the Republicans at that Senate Judiciary Committee this week, the woman is a saint. And, the court needs one of those. Jackson survived, and she stood up to questioning that was both intellectually dishonest, the questioning, as well as flat out vicious. And I use the word by Committee Chair Dick Durbin, the Illinois Democrat, who used that word to describe last Wednesday's bruising, relentless questioning by the Republican members. And here's the thing. Durbin said that in a press briefing after day 3. I mean, he didn't admonish, Cruz and Hawley and Lindsey Graham while they were at it. I mean, he tried to bang the gavel, but he didn't use the term vicious. He was still pretty collegial. But let's face it, what we witnessed, and if you saw it and see it on C-SPAN if you missed it, what we saw was a mugging. We saw a mugging because Republicans were mugging too for the cameras. Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, even Tom Cotton, although Tom Cotton is kind of like a Mr. Milquetoast wannabe Trump. They all want to be Donald Trump. They all want to be the next Trump. So here they were auditioning at the public and Jackson's expense. Cordial and congratulatory on introduction. Hey, what's that smile on your face? You know that song? Backstabbers? Who's that? The OJs? Cordial, congratulatory on introduction. But then the long knives come out for the full frontal attack over an issue that was shocking, emotional, but also understandable for voters. The claim that Jackson was soft on crime because of sentences in a small subset of the hundreds of cases she's handled. In fewer than 20 cases involving child pornography, her sentences were less than the national guidelines. But more than 70% of judges nationwide have complained the sentencing minimums are too high. So a lot of judges throughout the country are having problems with the sentencing guidelines. Jackson, though, said as a mother, she was troubled by these heinous cases, but using what she called her methodology. And this is important. She has a methodology. She doesn't fly by the seat of her pants. That methodology, she's neutral. She considers the facts. She writes her opinions that are long and transparent. And from that methodology, she feels she hands out fair and just cases. In fact, in every case brought up by Cruz and company, there was jail time involved. Was she soft on crime? Well, the National Fraternal Order of Police supports Jackson, and so do the police chiefs. The American Bar Association calls her well qualified. But those Republicans, unable to deal with such a super qualified BIPOC, I use the term BIPOC, Black Indigenous Person of Color, a BIPOC candidate, have decided that this is the issue that they're going to use to break Jackson. Why? Because child porn is political dynamite. I call it the evil twin of abortion. It's emotional. It can divide an electorate. Everyone despises it. So either that's the game Republicans are playing, or Republicans just like talking about porn. They like talking about child porn. I mean, this is their QAnon hill to die on. And that's why, is Cruz or Hawley badgered? Jackson firmly said she had answered the question and stood by her answer with respect. Hey, that's a phrase now. Respectfully, Senator. I mean, have you noticed? That's how she answered everything. It was always, thank you, Senator. She was always very cordial. And then when she wasn't, she would say, with respect, Senator, or respectfully, Senator. She's got some good, I guess, how would you describe that? Some good ticks that we should pick up on. When people are coming at you, just say, with respect, respectfully. And then fill in the blank. What rhymes with bass hole? Bass, like you go fishing, bass hole. Cruz and Holly were like a WWF tag team, really. Holly ended his hounding of Jackson on the third day. That was Jackson's Blue Blazer Day. And there was Senator Mazie Hirono, because I call this the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs. But there was Senator Mazie Hirono, recognized by the chair. But then Cruz butts in and tries to make a scene on entering a document that Chairman Durbin indicated could have been entered without such fanfare. And Cruz knew that. Cruz wanted to make a scene. You mean you don't want me to enter this? Hirono began because she was recognized. And she said the magic words, "Aloha, Judge Jackson." And it had to have some impact on Judge Jackson. Because here are these badgering Republicans, and here's someone who comes on and says, "Aloha." And Jackson replied, "Aloha." I'm going to spread some aloha into this room, Hirono said. And I have to admit, when I saw that, I said, oh, it brought some calm, and tried to change the temperature of the room. But look, let's face it, Jackson always stayed cool under pressure. She didn't crack. Only Senator Cory Booker made her cry, and for the right reasons. I mean, if you haven't, check out what Cory Booker did amid the thunder of demagoguery. Booker must have looked like a New Jersey rest stop. He allowed her to be human. Booker talked about her mother, father. They were sitting in the room. Jackson had mentioned how they lived through legal segregation in Florida. Booker talked about her brother, the cop who served in the military. He talked about Brown civil rights hero, Judge Constance Baker Motley. But then Booker said he saw Jackson, said he saw his own mom, his cousins, and all the ancestors standing around her. And I saw me and my Filipino ancestors too. Here's why I connected with KBJ. Coincidentally, I do share a few things with Jackson. I debated in high school. I know about Georgia debate cards. Now there's a reference. True debaters know your Georgia debate cards. I did OO, original oratory, in the NFL. National Football League? No, National Forensics League. You mean like CSI? No, forensics, like public speaking. And we both went to Harvard too, though I was there 15 years before. At least 15. On the first day of the hearings, I was struck by the introduction given by one of her classmates, her roommates, Lisa Fairfax. I mean, look, one of my classmates was Bill Gates, who's making my roommate. Lisa Fairfax was her roommate. She's now a law professor of the University of Pennsylvania. And all her roommates are now these hotshot legal folks. Harvard College, Harvard Law. Fairfax talked about meeting Jackson in her freshman year. She said, those first moments when you wonder if you belong. Katanji, she's the friend that made sure we all did. Fairfax went on. She was the role model who makes you believe in what she did or what she said. What she said? She said, you could do it, and here's how. And she showed us how. By the power of her example of hard work, preparation, and excellence that transforms the seemingly impossible into the achievable. I just wish I had that kind of college friend in my time in Cambridge 15 years earlier. I had these white roommates. When I was suffering, I know what they said. You want a pizza and a beer, Emil? Sure. I guess. I mean, there was no support for people of color, or at least not Asian Americans, not Filipino Americans like me, where they didn't know what to do with. Here's the thing that got me about Jackson on that third day. She called herself a black woman, a lucky inheritor of the civil rights dream. She had humility. She sounded like she understood the journey all people of color are on. Quote, I do consider myself, having been born in 1970, to be the first generation to benefit from the civil rights movement. I mean, I guess fully. I mean, if you were born in 1970, by 1988, things were opening up, and you're getting to Harvard in 88. The door was cracked open a little wider, and maybe there was full support. She said, from the legacy of all the work of so many people that went into changing the laws of this country so that people like me could have an opportunity to be sitting here before you today. I heard that. That got me when I heard her say that. And that was said before more onslaught from Graham, Cruz, and Hawley. And if you watched it all like I did, you felt the impact of each attack. And when Booker took his turn early on Wednesday evening, he was there to provide reassuring comfort. You have earned this spot, he said, to ward off any self-doubt or a sense of imposter syndrome, thoughts that may be lurking. That's what I was thinking, that, yeah, if you have any self-doubt, it's because you've been beaten up for the last 20 or 30 hours. You're worthy. You're a great American, he said. And he was just warming up. If you've experienced even the most minor transgression because of race, Booker was just making sure you could totally relate to Jackson, that you could see yourself as she sat in the committee chamber. There is a love in this country that is extraordinary, Booker said to Jackson. Always boils down to love, right? Booker then referenced the racial segregation laws affecting Jackson's family, as well as the laws that would have prevented her own intermarriage. The same anti-miscegenation laws that kept Asians like my Filipino father from marrying whites. Quote, but people didn't stop loving this country, even though this country didn't love them back. It's the reason Jackson was before the committee, Booker said. It was about all the people who came here and said, I'm going to show this country that I can be free here, that I can make this country love me as much as I love it. And then he mentioned Asian Americans specifically. Chinese Americans, forced into near slavery, building our railroads, connecting our country, saw the ugliest of America, but they were going to build their home here and say, America, you may not love me yet, but I'm going to make this nation live up to its promise and hope. That's what Booker said. A shout out to Asian Americans, to Chinese Americans, and you can see it on C-SPAN. All this infused a much needed sense of inclusion and diversity and love. Yes, love in a room that had been stripped of it by preening Republicans. And so you faced insults here that were shocking to me, Booker said to Jackson. But you are here because of that kind of love, and nobody's taking this away from me, Booker said, talking about the joy he felt, talking about the joy other people of color shared with him, people stopping him randomly in the street, his relatives. See, we all see ourselves in Jackson with a pride and with joy. Booker closed, reminding Jackson that she will face more of what she experienced when the vote comes before the full sentence or the full Senate. It looks like the vote's going to take place, the committee vote on Monday, the Senate vote maybe on April 4th. But Booker said, don't worry, God has got you. And how do you know that? Because you're here and I know what it's taken for you to sit in that seat. And that's when Ketanji Brown Jackson wiped her eyes. And that's all you really need to know about the judge. I mean, sure, we want judges to go after the bad guys. And it's good to know a little judicial philosophy or methodology, but we want to know that they're human too, that they have a heart, and that given individual circumstances that they can break the cookie cutter and responsibly balance punishment with a sense of public forgiveness, a constructive sense of empathy. There was a lot more of that at the hearing than you think. And that's what the hearing should be about. The hearings are about get to know Ketanji, not gotcha Ketanji. But fortunately, the Republicans didn't gotcha Ketanji. She showed her legal chops, her tenacity under fire. She showed her humanity. And if I had a vote, if I could cast a vote, I'd cast it in a second for Ketanji Brown Jackson. It's a vote for history. I'm telling you, I was touched, I was moved by Ketanji Brown Jackson. Let me bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Welcome.
I sound good? Sound is good.
So what do you think, Dan? Brown Jackson,
I think you covered a whole heck of a lot of the positive stuff about what we can take out of those 3 days.
Well, I'm trying to be positive because, everyone is concentrating on the negative, right? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Everyone's going to talk about the negative, but I wanted to say, hey, there was some positive stuff that happened there. And
well, yeah.
Do you think that the attack based on the child porn claim that she's soft on crime, do you think it was persuasive? Do you think it worked?
Yes, for those people on the right that want to see vicious attacks on people of color who are up for high positions in government and society. Yes, it was. I hate to say,
I thought it worked.
But yeah. Well, no, that's the reality that I face. People don't realize how racism works. There are those people who say things like, "I don't see color." I have neighbors who say that, and then in the same conversation, they say, "But you have an advantage over me." In terms of applying for the same job, if we were to apply for the same job. Yeah, and that's racist as hell, but it's based on their belief about how affirmative action works. In this instance, right, you have people who are willfully, they're not ignorant, they are willfully subscribing to an area of belief, right, that is not only fantastical, it is nearly satanic in its attitude. And they willingly subscribe to that. So that kind of viciousness has great appeal. But you hit it right. That appeal is staging for 2022 for those of them that are up. But these guys, those three particularly, not so much Lindsey Graham, but Cruz and Halsey, they're up for 24. They're up for 2024. Now, my question to my students is, are these men, judging from their behavior, are they fit to be presidents of the United States? Are they fit to be president of the United States? Because that's what they're posing for. They're posing to get a nomination, right? And then the question is, will that work for the national vote? It's going to work for a large segment of the Republican Party, and we have to face that reality. That is the bad news. Okay, but
Yeah.
will it work for an vote?
You know,
All right, now
Dan,
does it
you
work
said,
for the general population? Did that general population? It doesn't work for the general population because it was so vicious.
yeah, but
But
does
both
it work
sides
for
don't really understand the law.
yeah,
How many people
well,
really understood her response
on child porn?
on all of it, on any of the challenges that she faced? How many people
Well,
actually understood her response?
I don't. I think you're right from the standpoint that people will buy anything that the guy they believe in and they trust says, even if they're wrong. So no matter what the issue, child porn, critical race theory, what are the other ones? Everything that was brought up, uh,
Soft on crime,
soft on crime,
defending
everything.
defending terrorists.
Right. Oh yeah, the Guantanamo. Are you calling George W. Bush and Donald Rumsfeld a war criminal?
Yeah.
It's like, and she's signing on to essentially some boilerplate thing because she is representing. She's the attorney of
What they were
the.
signing was what she was stating her client's position was. She's stating what her clients were arguing, okay? And so they're taking from that and making it her statement that,
Yeah.
and then challenging her and saying, "Do you believe this?" Okay?
Yeah.
And that
The
has
problem.
currency on the
Yeah.
right.
Well, it's so totally misrepresented, so totally
Yes.
taken. It's not a matter of context. It's just a matter of going in and saying, "Oh, look, see, she says she's bad." Like if people looked at what Ted Cruz said when he said, "Oh, pretend I'm a woman." Do you remember that part where he
Oh God.
let's talk about
I
gender
couldn't stop
discrimination.
laughing. I couldn't
How about
stop
where he
laughing. I said, "Oh my God." I was
how about where he said, or how about where he said, "If I could, am I an Asian?" Now, if someone took Ted Cruz out of context and said,
pretend I'm
"Oh,
Chinese."
if they said, welcome to the White News Network, Ted Cruz has said he was an Asian. How dare he? He's a race betrayer."
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
he should say pretend I'm Latino.
oh yeah, right. He said, "Well, I'm an Hispanic man." And basically, though,
not
right?
not really.
Oh, wait a minute, Dan. The Cubans, the Cubans are one of the
Oh
few
God.
Republicans embrace. You know that. And if
Yeah,
we go back,
that's an East Coast thing, dude.
if we go back to the
That don't
Spanish,
work on the West Coast.
if we go back to the Spanish American War, some
Oh God, here we
people
go.
look. Look. Here's the thing: There's the Filipinos, there's the Cubans, and the Puerto Ricans.
Yeah,
Puerto Ricans, they go off with J Lo. The Cubans, we used to have Ricky Ricardo. Now we have Ted. And
yeah.
Filipinos, well, I guess there's Joe Coy. I guess. Although
Yeah, but Ricky was successful in the McCarthy era,
yeah,
while people on the right were challenging him as Pinko. You
right.
remember? You know,
Yes,
you know.
I do remember that. And yet, the Cubans are as conservative, and this is the thing. You go to Miami, and
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
every Republican convention I've covered, the Hispanics are led by the Latinos. Anyway, look, let's go back to Qatar now
Yeah,
because
about Cruz pretending to be. Think of me as.
I'm just saying that if people mistook everything Cruz said out of context and threw it back at him, that's sort of what's happening with the attack on Ketanji Brown Jackson. Things out of context being thrown back at her, like that whole thing with the child porn, as I explained in my column. Everyone has a problem with the national guidelines.
Sure,
70%
sure,
of the people
sure.
have problems with the national. I mean, some people say the minimums are too high.
And they
And
have said so, and there are a lot of people who have argued that in Congress. But most of the time, it's come from the so-called liberal left, and so it gets nowhere until the last couple this last year. It could have gone further when in 2018, after 2018, when the Democrats had a really strong, showing in that election, in that midterm election, but they dropped the ball. Okay, they dropped the ball because they were looking at 2020
Yeah.
and who the presidential probabilities are going to be. They're looking forward to the nomination process and the primaries and all that kind of stuff. So that's the Democratic story. They drop the ball all the time.
Yeah.
How did we get here with so many federal judges? And the risk was, right, that many of them were going to decide in favor not only of Trump but in favor of the whole agenda, right? This whole agenda of the Republican right. See, what people need to see is they need to see their agenda in the complete historical context. Okay, and you and I do that, but I'm wondering, how many people are familiar enough with the history post World War II, particularly, that they can see the entire context of the movement of the right from that period, from McCarthyism, okay, to an exceptional period where the liberal left and the moderates were winning, right, because of the civil rights movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement, the merger of those two things, right, and it affected a generation and a half of people, despite the fact that half of our generation said, "Okay, I've had it. I'm not voting anymore. I'm out of politics." And about a tenth of them were joining communes, and stuff like that. But
Well, look,
eventually they would come back and start voting again. But yeah.
yeah, well, you do have to take the long view. In fact,
Yes, you.
I was reading a Wall Street Journal editorial, this morning's Friday's Wall Street Journal editorial, and they were linking Ketanji Brown Jackson's statements about originalism to
Yeah,
Scalia and
oh
saying,
man, that was good.
yeah, and then you see, there are a lot of reasons why, if you're looking for a moderating position among the right, they should look at Ketanji Brown Jackson and say, "There's a lot to like here. She's an
Yeah,
original."
tell me about it.
How about this? She voted for Trump's wall. She allowed Trump's wall to begin building by making a judgment on that case. She also allowed for the RNC, the Republican National Committee, to get the emails from USAID, the emails of Hillary Clinton, and
Mhm.
that was the case decided by her. So, she's not this activist from the bench that they're trying to paint her as.
And
In
she was
fact,
she was asked that. She was thankfully asked that directly. Would you consider by both Republicans and Democrats, right, on the Senate? She was asked, "Are you an activist?" And she kind of argued that, I have a methodology, right? That was her response, and I try to go right down the middle and see. But see, I'm still asking you, Emil, how many of the people who watched all of that, besides lawyers, you
yeah,
know, and maybe political scientists, how many really understood what she was saying?
well,
As far as the general public is concerned, she's deflecting. Okay, she's deflecting, and she was deflecting appropriately, both from a judiciary moderation point of view, as well as from a response to really questions that were dirty pool. I mean, they were really bad, in terms
yeah,
of of just the attitude or the content. Okay, but the actual reversal, right? The actual reversal of the circumstances that she was addressing in those cases. Okay,
well,
it was absolute. It was just
yeah,
so absolute. But the people could not understand that from her response. That's my position. I
yeah.
was looking forward to people like you and I shredding the Republican approach, right? On the discussions afterwards, and some people got close to that, but I'm still looking for it now because I need to go back to class again next week, right? We're on spring break right now, and I
Yeah.
have to talk about this. But so I'm going to end up doing the tight wire walk again, right? And having to take my own position and then try to amalgamate it with other critical positions that maybe sound less radical. Okay.
Here's the thing. She could not answer the question because she was right. There are issues that are bubbling up to the Supreme Court level,
On
and
some
she
issues, yes,
she does not.
likely to occur. They're likely to come before the court.
And this was the answer that Amy
Oh,
Coney Barrett
Blackburn,
gave.
Blackburn was all over that stuff,
Oh,
man. She was
yeah.
just she was incredible. We haven't mentioned her yet.
Well,
She should have
Marcia
said, "Pretend I'm a woman."
Yeah, Marcia Blackburn. I she she. I was going to include her, but she was not nearly as vicious as Graham, Cruz, and Holly. Although she had her moments when you say, "Where is this woman coming from?"
Yeah,
This the whole thing. We got to give our parents the rights, to protect our children, and this whole how can a biological woman,
yeah.
win
Could you define woman? Define a
elite
woman.
sports? Yeah. Well, Cruz took up that issue when he said, "Now define biological woman," and then he said, "How about me? Can I be an Asian? Can I sue?" Here's the fallacy about that. He could sue
Yes.
Harvard
Yeah.
if there was an injury. He doesn't have to be Asian,
Right.
but that it was total BS. But here's something from that, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the news things that the whole idea of Ketanji Brown Jackson recusing herself from the Harvard discrimination or that case against Harvard on affirmative action. It
Hmm.
should be coming up in October. They would have to maybe announce it following year, next June. But I thought that maybe she would recuse herself. This is the first time I actually heard her say, "My plan is to recuse," when
Right.
Cruz
That's
asked her.
exactly, yeah.
But now when I heard that, she said the lead up was Cruz saying, "Could I sue as an Asian American? If I'm an Hispanic, but if I'm an Asian, can I sue?" Which is he could sue whatever if he wants.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the key is there injury? Is there
Right.
does he
Right.
have standing and is there injury? And I kept thinking back to the anti-affirmative action legal mill that does all these cases. And they're the people behind the Texas case
Yes.
that lost to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
They found their Asian plaintiffs and they lodged this case. The Texas case failed because they had a white plaintiff, but in the end, even the conservatives said, "What's the injury?
There it is.
And if there's no injury,
Who is
what do
harmed?
you do? Do you just give them back a refund on the application fee?
Right.
That may be all these Asians get. If
Hmm.
that's your injury, I mean, if you say, "Look, I didn't get into Harvard, but I got into my second choice school, Brown, or I got into my second choice school, Penn, or heaven forbid, Yale," I mean, the thing is, what's the injury?
Well, okay. When I don't want to get too deep into the affirmative action cases, right? But the historical one that I mentioned it before was DeFunis versus Odegaard that came out of Washington State. 1971.
Yeah.
Affirmative action programs had barely been in place, right? 3 or 4 years, and they challenged it at the law school level. Okay. And we knew this was coming. I had a conversation with the now retired judge, Ronald Kittichai, and back in 70 and 71, when the affirmative action cases were coming up and DeFunis came up, but it wasn't decided yet. And I said, how long do you think affirmative action is going to last? Right. And he gave it a year, and he was right that the DeFunis case could have been, won or lost in that year. But what the court did was they chickened and they said, okay, it's moot because DeFunis got into a law school, not necessarily his first pick, but he got into the law
Ah,
school.
that's a
Okay.
key thing. That's a
They
key
said
thing.
it's moot. It's moot. So, but I said, look, Roe versus Wade was moot because by the time the case was being decided, she either had the baby or had the abortion, right? And so it was moot at that point. But they took the case up anyway. Okay. So what's the lesson? The Supreme Court will make its own choice as to what they want to take up and what they don't want to take up. And right now, with a 6-3 margin, what you've got is they're going to take up all that stuff, not just abortion, but all the affirmative action, everything you can possibly think of. They're going to take it all up. And if the American public doesn't start getting educated, particularly those people who are willing to vote, okay, in a manner that's consistent with the way the Constitution was written, the way it was intended, and the way it's been interpreted, how many people really know that stuff, man? I mean,
Well, look, this is the public school.
yeah, tell me about it.
Public schools in action, right? I mean, I just think that that key thing about injury and
Yes, what's the harm?
they have a 6'3", but
Mm-hmm.
now if you have if Ketanji Brown Jackson is replacing Breyer, and now and she recuses herself, and if Kagan refuses herself, the only one on the liberal side is Sotomayor.
Well, yeah.
And then on the conservative side, if really Gorsuch could say, I got a connection with Harvard, and Roberts can say, I got a connection with Harvard. And suddenly you've got 4 on the conservative side to 1. Could they have a?
Should they all recuse? Yeah.
Well, if they all
Should
recuse,
they all recuse?
well, should there be a 4-1? Could you have a 4-1 decision?
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Because I would think that if they were able. Now, here's the other thing, and it's right what you're saying. When you watch enough of these hearings, it's like going to, like a kind of Zoom law school or Eastman law school. I mean, because
Poli sci at the least, yeah.
yeah. But the thing is, like, here is how many times did Ketanji Brown Jackson say "stare decisis"? Right? And how many people out there thought that "stare decisis"? I have all their CDs. I know. I used to see her when I was a kid.
Wasn't that Van Gogh?
Right. Oh yeah, and she had that painting.
That was the Van Gogh.
The guy with no ear. Yeah.
Yeah, which he lopped off himself. I mean, that is kind of problematic. Okay, so stare decisis.
You mentioned
precedent. It just means precedent.
Right. But
with CE, not an SI. Yeah.
Right, precedent, but you mentioned the DeFunis case.
Yeah, DeFunis, and they turned it down. They mooted it.
Yeah.
And then they came up again with Bakke, case come out of California, UC Davis, right? And they upheld affirmative action. They only struck down the quota element, right?
Right.
You can't set up quotas. Okay.
But Bakke's been the law, right?
Yes, and it still is.
Bakke, it was held up by Grutter. Grutter's
Yeah.
Held up
there
by
you
Grutter
go. You're going.
Case.
Boy, what a memory! You're so good. Damn.
It's all the news stories I've done on affirmative action. But the thing is, but
you still have to recollect them. You still have to remember them.
You're right about the quotas. The quotas are the only thing that is, we know quotas are illegal.
So let's spell it out. You can't say 10% of all of the people that we admit to medical school or law school. Those are the 2 biggies, right? Those are the 2 you get challenged all the time. Medical school or law school. But it's getting down to high schools now, man.
Yeah.
Last year, that case in Virginia, right? Thomas Jefferson High School.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And it was Asians suing there too,
This is the thing about, and look, this is the Asian American Micro Talk Show. And this is the thing about the Harvard case, because there are Asians who are for getting rid of affirmative action because they feel injured.
Right.
But there are a lot of Asian Americans, about 65% of us,
mm-hmm.
who believe that affirmative action has helped everyone, not just Asians, but everyone, and it should be maintained. It should be preserved.
Right. And it wasn't always that way. It was about 50-50 up until Prop 209 in California, where they called it the California Civil Rights Initiative. Remember CCRI? And I said, look at these guys, man. Talk about salesmanship, right? They're gonna call in and they're gonna say, yeah, and they start citing, MLK Jr. Right? On we got to be judged, by our merit, not the color of our skin, right? So I say, okay, here we go.
Well, that was really, I guess one of the first times that I saw that blatant sales job and intentional, the intentional twisting of
Misrepresentation.
left is right and up
Yeah,
is down.
that's right. Exactly.
Civil rights is not about civil.
Exactly.
It's like total, and people resort to this in politics because they just need to split people up. That's why child pornography
Yeah, yeah, it's a
is
good one.
it's the absolute best atom splitter, right? And
Hmm.
people are close together. You need something that's going to split people up, and then let them go where their heart and their
Well,
it's
yeah, but why does it, why it works is not just that it's pornography. Why it works is that pornography is directly associated with molestation. So the lowest person, the lowest being that you can be in prison is a child molester.
right.
The lifespan of child molesters, convicted child molesters in prison is very short because people, the rest of the prison population has a mark on those people. Okay,
So
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 out here in the general public, there's an association between child pornography and molestation. That's why it works. But there's not a direct relationship between pornographic material, particularly that which dehumanizes women, right, and rape. What's that? Okay. There's very few people that have made that connection. That the popularity of certain forms of pornography, right, are actually contributing to the dehumanizing of women, the objectifying of women, right, and to rape
it
and
is it
violence.
is, and that's directly related to the internet, and that was one of the issues that was brought
Yeah,
up
there you go.
in the questioning. They're saying, well, tens of thousands of images. Well, you just press a button and on your
And that's
computer.
what happens. You have
Yeah.
access. Yeah.
So yeah, look, I don't want we people need to have an understanding of child pornography, but to be used as an irrelevant fact in whether or not Ketanji Brown
That's right.
Jackson should be the next Supreme Court justice is just ah it's just bothersome. I can see where people who sort of like, I'm just going to come in and see what this is all about, and then they hear the discussion. I can see why people are so turned off. And this was a line of questioning in the discussion about how politics has lost standing, in the eyes of the public, the court, Washington. No one trusts what's going on, and the people who are raising all these issues, like Cruz and Hawley and Cotton, well, they're responsible for it. That's the thing.
Well,
It's
and
go
see the
ahead.
thing,
Go f-
that's
So
not what the commentators say though. Too many commentators. I was listening to what's his name? All the President's Men. Which guy was it?
Bernstein or Woodward,
No, it was Woodard.
Woodward, yeah.
And Woodward said, uh, well, we have the extreme right, and we also have the left. And somebody came on, I think it was Eugene Robinson, who writes for the same paper, right, for the Washington Post, and he says, "Wait a minute, there's not an equivalency here. Okay, that what's been done on the right, is extreme and constant, and there's very small element on the left that says anything that is fantastical. Okay, it may be challenging, it may be ideologically, radical to some people, but it's not fantastical, and it isn't grossly hypocritical, right? And so I keep saying that in my class. I hate it when people come on and they say, well, both sides do it. No, they don't. No, they do not.
They,
Okay.
they don't. But you know what I hate more is how people who are just slightly to the left are like suddenly seen as
Radicalized. Yeah,
radical.
they're sick ass commies.
Right.
You know.
Any, anything to the left of center, even if it's just like, I used to. There's a guy named Andrew Kopkind who famous radical. When I was in Washington, I'd always have him on my show because he was far more left than I was. And I would say, so, what's the liberal position? I would say, oh, this is a liberal. And he'd say, don't call me a liberal. I'm, I'm a radical. Oh, okay. Sorry, Andrew.
Okay. Sorry, man.
Yeah. And so that made me feel like, oh, well, I guess I'm not radical enough. I'm actually much more moderate, but the people on the right make me feel like I'm way out there with,
Yeah, yeah.
my,
You're
my,
about to pick up the gun. You're about to pick up the gun, and it's probably going to be an AK-47 because that's going to be your memorial to Che.
yeah.
And
Well, there's
and Mao
you're seen as a
and
revolutionary.
Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah. So, the thing is,
We're all Jane Fonda.
the right has that problem too, though, because if you're conservative, uh, you could be seen as QAnon, right? You could be seen as the January Sixers.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah,
But the point is, I think, is that there are more people in the comfortable middle who are just good, decent Americans and can work together and be collegial, and
even though you disagree. Yeah, I agree. I
we
think
don't we don't
I see
have
it all the time. I see it all the time. But there's something else that I need to talk to you about. I'll talk to you about it privately because I don't want it to go out into the public right
Oh,
away.
okay. All right.
Anyway,
Let
okay,
me
well,
ask you
you
something
do.
though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me ask you, since we're talking about the left and the right,
Yep.
in January 6th, Clarence Thomas got out of the hospital.
I that's where I was going anyway.
Yeah, and I was joking about Clarence Thomas the other day. I said, the Supreme Court says he doesn't have COVID, and we know, and he has flu-like symptoms, and we know it's true because it was a 6-3 vote.
I want him to say it wasn't an STD. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what I
yeah.
want to say. Okay.
Well, I didn't know if you can get a 6-3 vote on an STD, but you got a 6-3 vote on it was more flu-like than COVID, and now he's out, and
Right.
now he's got to and I'm sure he got out because his wife is under attack, and is this the woman of Clarence Thomas's dream?
Why is she under attack? Let's not jump to she's under attack and then give them the advantage of being able to say, yeah, she has every right to defend herself.
Well,
She
see,
is under attack because emails that were disclosed
yeah,
as a part of the material that the good justice had voted to keep out of the January 6th committee's hands, right? He was the only justice who went against releasing that material to the commission. Okay, he was the only one. So the question back then was, should he have recused himself? And you and I both said, yeah, he should have recused himself. Unfortunately, that was in a phone conversation. We didn't do it online,
yeah,
and we
right.
should have. We should have said, yeah, hell yeah, the guy should have recused himself. But now we see this stuff come out, and it's like, holy smoke! I mean, she's so QAnon. It's almost unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't do a better job of raising questions about her sanity than
Yeah.
just reading her email.
Well,
And
yeah,
Meadows' response.
yeah,
The King of Kings response.
yeah.
He's
I
calling on Jesus to righteously, overturn that last election.
Meadows has always been kind of a snake. Uh, he's sort of like Jim Jordan in a suit, right? And with a slightly more religious leaning. But a lot's been coming out about Meadows and his wife, and the place where he lives, and false reports, and about you know where his district is, or which
Yeah,
legislature
yeah.
he lives in. So this is the thing. I I think if we had a functional democracy, people would be calling for Clarence Thomas's for his robe. And say, hey, hang up your robe,
It's
and
called impeachment.
leave your card key at the door.
Yep. It's called impeachment, and I don't know how long ago it was. About a year and a half. One of the last times that I posted anything on Twitter was, or maybe it was on Facebook, and what I said was, the people who, it was because uh, the second impeachment of Donald Trump failed. Okay, and I said, well, the people who have most frequently ever been impeached and actually removed from office were all judges. Were judges,
Yeah.
and a former prosecutor, a friend of mine, retired now, also a former striker at San Francisco State. She attended the same law school. I think she graduated maybe a year before me. But anyway, she said, "Yeah, okay, but impeachment is going to require the Senate. Same thing, same problem. Removal from office is going to be difficult, and all the rest of that stuff." And I agreed. But when you see something, so far it hasn't been connected with Justice Thomas so much that it appears to be egregious. Okay, but you never know. Stuff can come up, and I think one of the emails that she had with Meadows was, "I have just discussed this with my best friend,"
Oh
and
yeah.
they have always talked about themselves publicly. Both sides, both he and her, have referred to themselves as my best friend publicly numerous times.
I don't know. I'm just I'm glad that it came out. The fact that it's come out now, do you think it's going to have any effect on the Jackson um, nomination?
Appointment.
Do you
Um,
think
I
that
don't
it?
know. I
Do you
don't. I
think
don't.
it may?
Adverse effect, or do you think it's going to have a positive effect?
Well, I would think that maybe a positive effect to make people think, "Wow, look at the doofuses on the court. We better have." I mean, look, and no one thought that Clarence Thomas was a bright bulb. You know, he never indicated such until he started talking about a year or two ago, and now he
During the Trump administration, that was the first time that he started coming out on his own and speaking for the majority. In a justice decision, in a majority of justices' decision.
right, and now he's the elder statesman of the court,
Well,
and
that's just because he's been there that long. Yeah.
well, that's the thing. I
Yeah.
I just I just hope that people understand that, boy, here's the thing with Ketanji Brown Jackson. She is so well qualified. If we cannot allow a
Yeah.
well qualified person
Yeah.
I mean, this is what a well qualified person has to go through. She has to go through getting beaten up in public by Republicans, falsely accusing her of X, Y, or Z. And then, she is so well qualified. She gets treated like this. This is just, it's just amazing. What would a lesser person had just would have just
Well,
skated?
all you got to do, okay, you want to see a lesser person and how they would react? What was who? Here's the Jeopardy answer.
Oh,
who
Brett,
who
Brett
was
Kavanaugh.
Justice Kavanaugh?
Yeah, Brett Kavanaugh. Oh, even Amy Coney Barrett. You know,
and there were legit complaints against him, man. Okay,
well,
did I? I don't think I ever discussed this with you. When I was,
we
I was,
we
I
we
was
talked.
talking to Linda, and I said, you know what, Kavanaugh, the description that these women are giving is exactly what I witnessed when I was in a fucking Jesuit high
Yeah.
school. Okay,
Well,
that was the kind of behavior that some guys, not everybody, but some guys were into.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I just think that when it comes to well qualified people of color, like I said in my column, we all know that we have to be at least twice as good as the next guy, and if you're not, then uh, you know then you may not get the job. But Jackson she's 5x, 10x better.
Yeah,
She's
that's true.
that much better.
Well, where she really scores big is in the judicial experience
Right.
categories, right? I mean, she makes the last three. Oh, they just happen to be Republican appointees.
Yeah.
She makes the last three look lightweight. I
Yeah.
mean, she's scoring 5 or 6 categories, including having gone to a public high school, right?
Yeah. I know
So
it's incredible to see how well qualified she is, and she's got to go through this. It's amazing, and I just hate people to look at her and say, "Oh, affirmative action." If she were, I mean, I don't doubt that affirmative action was applied, but
sure,
only to allow her to be seen.
that's
She didn't need it to
exactly
to
excellent point.
yeah,
What
I mean, she
people what people cannot accept is that there are at least 3 levels, perhaps even 4 levels of affirmative action. Okay, and we call it now equity, practice. Okay, there's at least the first level is simply that you have a right to enter and be evaluated. That's the first level of affirmative action, is just to be considered, right? In her instance, to be considered to be admitted to Harvard, both for undergrad and grad school, law school, right? That's the first level of affirmative action. When the people cannot find anyone of those backgrounds within their existing population, then it goes to a second and third level, right? How qualified are they? And then the comparative thing comes up. And so the other side of the issue that you raised earlier, who's harmed and what is the harm, right? The reverse discrimination argument, right, was originally made in the Baki case, okay? And the justice has said, you're gonna get admitted. You got admitted. So where's the harm? And the argument was, people less qualified than me have been admitted. And when they go back and they study who got admitted, it turns out that everybody who got admitted under the affirmative action LEOP program were more qualified or as qualified as the plaintiff, Baki. So he had no argument in that regard, right? And
Right.
my message to him, I sent him a message and I said, you better do damn well in medical school, man, because you're carrying the flag for white folks.
Well,
Yeah.
this is the thing. I started hearing some people in offhanded remarks on C-SPAN. Virginia Senator Patrick or Vermont Senator
Yeah.
Patrick Leahy was talking about how when Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated, he heard people say things like, "Well, what about all these well-qualified white men? What do we do with them?" And he was saying it kind of ironically. Saying it,
Yeah, but
quote,
they're not asking it with the politeness and tone that you just asked it.
right. Well, but he was saying he was surprised at the response because I think the line of questioning that I referred to earlier by Ted Cruz,
Mm-hmm.
which was, can I be an aggrieved member of the class? Can I be an Asian? Can I be a woman? What he's getting at is, how can I qualify to sue on the basis of discrimination?
Mm-hmm.
How can whites
Mm-hmm.
sue on the basis of discrimination? Because that's where we're going. We're going down the path of, at some point, the white people are going to say, hey, look, we're minorities. This is a diverse country, but we're no longer the white supremacists. This is a post white supremacist world. And how do we get back to that? By suing, by saying, this is our injury. We're suing. We're suing for our
Okay.
rights.
Okay,
That
believe it. Okay, I hate to do that. Believe it or not, okay, when the Baki case was still a California case, because it started in '75 as a
right,
California case, right?
right.
Before it was pulled up into federal court, okay, and it went appellate route, okay, circuit. And so I was in law school and I was on the admissions committee. The admissions committee was for LEOP, Legal Education Opportunity Program, was made up of faculty and students. And I was on the committee. You got to be voted in by the students and then accepted by the faculty, and they so I was on that thing for 3 years, man. And and I was looking at the Baki case as a California state case, and I said, "Uh-oh, we got to watch out, because this could successfully do away with EOP, educational opportunity programs that were established adjunct to the EOA, the Economic Opportunity Act of 1965, right, which opened the door for all kinds of other federal legislation around equity issues, affirmative action." And so I thought, what we got to do is we have to set up a program that cites student affirmative action as based on acceptability under the standards of that the university sets up. So let's look up the objective standard. And so for admission to the colleges at SF State, it was 3.0, right? And at Berkeley, that's the minimal qualification. And at Berkeley, it was 3.5. Okay. So I said, okay, let's take a look at who actually gets admitted to the law schools. And it ends up being, in most instances, 3.9, 4.0, and believe it or not, above. Because, people who did AP,
Right.
right, for 4 years or
Or
2 years at the least, yeah, 4.5. So a lot of people don't know that. So there was actually a 4.5 standard. And then, we looked at legacy and all the rest of that stuff. And so we were looking at this almost 50 years ago, man. And
well,
so at San Francisco State, we started a student affirmative action program even before Bakke was decided in 78 by the Supreme Court. An SAA program was begun at several UC campuses. I was asked to talk about SAA at UC Santa Barbara when they set up their program. Okay. So, it's another side of
I
the.
think what's going to happen, I think that this next wave of litigation, because they have a right, the Supreme Court, I know they have the numbers, but if stare decisis precedent works,
Okay.
if they could look at the precedent, they might say, okay, let's toss this back. I didn't want to overreact to say that it looks like affirmative action is dead.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have the votes anyway, 6-3, right? If she's
Yeah.
requested prior. But if there may be a way for people who have, if there are multiple judges who might have some kind of, there might be grounds to be for recusal. There is a way that they could bypass that. I was reading somewhere that said that they could make some kind of exception and that they can all participate in the decision. But I just think that they might be able to be persuasive to the other folks to say, let's throw it back and let the lower court stand. Do you think that has a chance of
Yes.
happening?
Yes, it does.
I mean,
It
because
does have a chance. And you know why? Because I think the justices are looking at the way that you asked, is there going to be an effect on Brown Jackson's chances of becoming? I think it's a foregone conclusion that she's going to be uh, successfully ascendant
she's
to
going to be
the court. And
right.
so what the pressure is going to be on the rest of the court on the issues that come up shortly. Abortion, that's not a good one for abortion and contraception issues. Okay, I think that the conservative majority is going to win on that, and it's at least going to cut back further on what kind of limitations can be put on abortion and contraception. People are going to get really confused now because I mentioned contraception along with abortion, and they're thinking, what? There's restrictions on contraception. They don't understand the history that it's the religious right that is after this stuff, and it's the religious right that believes, including in Catholic dogma, right, that you can't interfere with the natural process of sex and procreation. Anyway, but affirmative action is different. Okay, a lot of that is because the statistics still show evidence of discrimination.
So
As long as you can show evidence of discrimination, of actual discrimination occurring while these cases are being heard by the court, it's going to be really hard for them to just cancel it out completely. So they're going to shave back on it more, and I think they're going to the language of social equity and try and shrink it back that way, and then go state by state. Like did you just mention that? Like to just throw it back to the
no,
states?
I haven't mentioned that yet, but I did say throw it back to the lower court ruling,
Okay, lower courts, yes.
the Harvard case, which said Harvard was right and the Asian American students were wrong. Now
Right.
that may get a
Go
lot of
back and
people.
review it. I think that's a good position. Oh, and I meant to bring this up earlier.
Yeah,
Um, what the phrase that Judge Brown Jackson used was with all. She used respectfully sometimes, and she used with all due respect
yeah.
many
Or
times.
sometimes she just shorted it
Okay.
and said, with respect, respectfully, Dan. She said
Yes.
with respect.
But when she says with all due respect, that is a phrase that is used by courts, okay, and by people arguing before the courts to actually demean the people that they're addressing, okay? So the higher court, an appellate court on review of a district court, or a higher appellate court on a review of a state Supreme Court's decision will often say, with respect to the decision of the learned court below. And when they said that, I would just jump to the to the conclusion of the case because I knew they were just going to kick their butts, right? And demean them all to hell by arguing how wrong they were. Okay, and so that's what she was doing in part. And so the hotter that the questioning got, the more she would say, "With all due respect, Senator," what I was saying. Yep, there she is. That's a judge. she she actually knows what she's doing.
See, now I didn't pick up on that because I am not a lawyer, but I know the phrase. I know
Yeah.
the phrase. It's sort of like when people use the term obviously. You when people when you're talking to people and and you're saying something that you think, oh yeah,
Yeah,
obviously
obviously. Yeah. That's like saying my starting point was a little more elevated than yours. So would you please step up?
yeah. No, it goes both ways. If
Yeah,
someone obviously you or you obviously someone else,
yeah, that's it. That's it.
hey, come on, stupid. We're stupid here,
That's basically, I can't. The reason I'm laughing so hard is I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I've been at faculty meetings where I really felt like saying that. Come on, man. You
with,
know?
with all due respect, except for this moment where I don't respect you at all. I don't respect you at all.
But that's what they're saying. That's actually what they're saying.
Yeah.
When they say due respect, that means you ain't got. There is no reason to respect what you said. You due. That's a big word. What's the meaning of due? Can you see that being debated in law school? Yeah, you know.
It's
I
it's
heard
actually
people debate what is the meaning of the. It just
it sounds good though. It sounds cordial. It sounds
yeah,
colloquial.
yeah, that's what it's meant to be. But
Yeah.
it's a slice. It's a cut. It's a cut, man. And they didn't even know they were bleeding. I don't think. Do you think those guys with the egos that they have? Do you think they realized that they got sliced?
That's the thing. Their egos are too. You cut my ego, not me. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I think I would have told. I think you need a bandage for that, man. You may need stitches, dude. You may need stitches.
Uh,
So
yeah,
she was just so cool. I thought I thought you know what? I thought the coolest thing was not just Hirono saying aloha.
aloha. Yeah.
Yeah, but earlier on she had really slammed some when she came on after I think Coons. No,
Who?
it wasn't Halsey and it wasn't Cruz. It was another senator, another
Cornyn.
Republican.
Cornyn.
Yeah, yeah, it was Cornyn. You're right, Cornyn. That's another easy shot.
Yeah. Well, he's to the right, but he wants to position himself as, with Grassley, the Republicans who have been there a while, so they have a little more. They're not. They have a little more gravitas. And so and I like it when Grassley, not Grassley, but when Leahy says of Ted Cruz, the junior senator from
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah, Judy, call him Junior. I, that was so cool. Yeah, I know. That's another slice.
Yeah. Well, look,
That's like, grow up, son.
look,
Do some growing up, son.
being a fellow June myself, sort of like Bung Bung Marcos.
Oh no, you had to bring that up. Oh man,
Well, hey, hold on. Let,
front
let's
runner.
let's talk about that next week. But look,
You said
before
that last week.
oh, but we got another. We
Yeah,
have
yeah. No, the election is coming up, but you know.
well. Look, here's the thing: most Americans, they get sidetracked by the polls, but the polls. Some Bung Bung is the head, but who knows what can happen between now and the actual election, which I believe is on May 9th. I think it's May.
Yeah, I think so. It's
So
early May.
yeah, it's early, but and how many people here in the United States who are dual citizens can really vote? I I don't know. Not I mean, although we are curious, and it will be interesting to see, especially with China, to see if they do,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
the Russia thing, or if they back off and go the self-interest route, which is just to stay in Asia and not upset the West. So that's an issue. So look, let's talk about that next week. But because China may do something yet
Yep.
this week. But I do want to talk about 1968, the San Francisco State strike, and Danny Glover, who is up for an honorary Oscar this weekend.
Oh,
Did
I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention.
you did you
Okay.
did you ever encounter Danny Glover in San Francisco State?
All the time.
Yeah,
All the time. He was really active in BSU,
yeah,
Black Students Union, and he was in the sciences. I think he was in math, but in something that was kind of unexpected.
yeah.
And he was going for education when so I had heard that he was with the school district for a while. He was doing something around education, and the 10th anniversary came up. Now I'm one of those guys that I always felt I was just a gopher. Okay, that go for this, go for that, and I was certainly a junior. The people who were on the steering committee of the Third World Liberation Front were representatives from the several groups that constituted the TWLF, but the most prominent members were African American, were members of the BSU, and they were also pretty much elder statesmen. Many of them were veterans of the Vietnam War. At least one was an officer in the military. And so, we had this. Everybody looked at us as a bunch of radical socialists or communists, right? The reality was there were a lot of people who were, as you put it earlier, to the left of center, right? But they certainly weren't radical. They were radical because of their assumed association with even more radical people, such as those who were in the SDS. So when you looked at the Students for Democratic Society, they were further left as a whole than many people who were members of the TWLF organizations. Okay, that's what you got to understand. Now, among the leadership, there were some people that were truly radical left and revolutionary, but there were also a lot of people who were rather slightly left of center. Okay, but we agreed on certain principles, and we agreed like on representation, right, and on consensus and things like that. So we were able to move forward. Glover was friends with everybody. Everybody really liked the guy because he was a really likable guy. Okay, but at the 10th anniversary, I always expect not to be remembered by anybody. Okay, except people who I work closely with. But we're kind of it was really small. There was only 10th anniversary. It was a couple hundred people, and Danny came over to say hi. And I thought, yeah, I guess he does remember me. And I was standing there with Gene Royale, another veteran of the strike, Chicano, and we said, so what's up, man? How's teaching and all that? And he said, oh, I'm actually moving away from that a bit. I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember his exact words. And then he said, I said, so what are you getting into? And I go, they really need black role models in education, and you're moving away from that, man. I mean, you're a rarity, in the system. And he said, yeah, but I really feel a calling. And I said, yeah, well, what are you getting into? And he says, oh, acting.
Hmm.
And I said, oh yeah, I thought it was a hobby thing, because I heard that you were getting involved in a couple of local plays and stuff, and there were some people that hung around with the I Hotel issue and all that, and some of them were playwrights, and they had written kind of third worldy plays, right? And he had gotten into them, these small things, and then and I said, wow, if that's really what you want to do, I got to say, all power, bro, all power, go ahead. And then he smiled off and he went off to talk to somebody else. And I looked at Gene and I said, you think he's got leading man potential? And Gene, kind of shook his head, no, right? and we both kind of looked at each other and said, wow, man, okay, that's what the brother wants to do. That's what the brother wants to do, right? So I didn't see any of his plays, okay, but a couple of years later comes out Silverado,
Oh yeah, Silverado.
cowboy flick, right? And he played the black man, and I said, "Oh shit! I'm sorry. Oh no! I hope that he's not going to get killed off in the first half hour, right? Because every time there's a black guy, man, they get killed off. That's the stereotype, and it just over and over again. You keep hoping it's not going to happen, and it happens. And so he ends up going through the whole flick, and he's trying to save his sister, from a fate worse than death, among other things. And he scores, and he's really good. He's really really good, man. So I thought, geez, I think he's got something. I think he's really good.
I saw Danny Glover first in Places in the Heart with Sally
Yeah,
Field.
that's
That
right.
was 83, 84,
Yeah,
maybe later,
it was
85.
really good.
Yeah, and then I saw.
Color Purple.
Here's the thing about Danny Glover. He grew up on Grove in the
Oh
Hayes.
no, he's your neighborhood. Yeah,
Yeah, and I grew up sort of. We ended up in the Mission, but we started out kindergarten, first grade, right there by the Panhandle in
right,
San Francisco.
right.
So near Grove, and actually, I played a lot with Danny Glover's cousin, and I didn't
In the
know
Panhandle. Yeah, you could play Panhandle.
but we also played at the now
The grammar school.
we hung out at Andrew Jackson Elementary School.
Yeah, right.
It's the poorly named elementary school.
Well, it was called grammar school until
Was it
but
great?
then
Well,
elementary. Yeah,
I think we were. I think we. But by the time I got there, was still
it was elementary.
was it elementary, my dear Watson. Yeah.
There
So, but
went grammar.
no grammar, no
No
grammar,
grammar. You could tell because we got him in college. He ain't got no grammar.
no grammar. Yeah. But no, I have met him a couple of times doing interviews. Nice guy. Never
Great guy.
remembered me. He's like, look, I'm probably one of the few brown guys, on this side of my geography. But no, sorry. He's Danny Glover. So I'm glad
Dan Glover.
I'm glad he's getting Oscar recognition because Places in the Heart, I believe, won an Oscar for Sally Field,
Yeah, it did.
and it did not, and he was as big in that role or
He
that
was.
as she was. And
And then Color Purple
oh
and
yeah,
and
he was in,
Oprah got one, right?
he was in Color. So here's the thing about um, I understand your reaction initially to Danny Glover going into acting because
Yeah,
it was one of the reasons why I was doing some theater when I was in college, but I knew there was just fun. It was just something
yeah,
you do
yeah,
because could you do it and sustain yourself?
yeah. That's it.
That's the issue. So
We had that question when Jeff Chan, who passed recently, unfortunately, professor of Asian American Studies, but a creative writer. His book was "Eat Everything Before You Die," and his brother Michael Paul Chan, has had a long career in L.A. doing TV.
yeah,
And I thought it was over when the first version of the what is it? The
Crazy Rich Asians.
yeah. Until that was over, and then then it resurrected, and he was still in the continuing series, right? So
Yeah, fresh off the boat. You mean?
no, he was in yeah, I don't, was he in Fresh Off the Boat? I didn't
I
watch that
I
enough.
don't know. Well,
But he, and then he did a couple of movies. He got killed early in The Crow. Yeah. So, but anyway, so Michael Paul Chan, and he, I remember when his brother said, "Oh yeah, I'm helping him move," and I go, "Where?" And he goes, "Oh, they got a spot on Malibu." And I said, "Oh, really?" So some people quietly make a career out of it, right? But it comes as a surprise because I knew so many more people, right, that were trying to make it that never did make it that way, right? So, you know, it was a surprise when Ali made it,
yeah, Ali Wong.
and Joe Coy,
Well,
uh,
Michael Paul Chan on the TNT series The Closer
that's right,
and Major Crimes,
right,
and he
and that
also
was the follow up on The Closer. Yeah.
yeah he acted in U.S. Marshals, and he's a bald or a he has that the bald look,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, he went for it early.
yeah, born 1950 in San Francisco, an actor and producer
Hmm.
known for the Goonies. So he's probably made his money.
That was a good one.
And yeah, Gooners,
The Goonies
Goonies.
was great.
That was um I forget the director. I I
Wasn't it Spielberg?
no, not. I don't think so. I think it was Donner. I think it was Richard Donner.
Yeah,
If I,
it was filmed, off the north coast of California and Coos Bay, right in Oregon. It
yeah.
was really good. I liked it.
So you think? Oh no, it was Richard Donner was the
Okay,
director,
good.
screenplay by Chris Columbus, and executive producer Steven Spielberg.
Okay, there you go.
I remember the Goonies because I did interview Richard Donner, the late Richard Donner,
Right.
who he died I think a couple of years ago. Anyway,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
so
He
now
was a good one. He was a good one. That was really a good flick. I mean, to get the kids to be able to do that well
oh
was
yeah.
incredible. They were incredible.
So Michael Paul, get back to Michael Paul Chan. So this is the thing about Asian actors. I'm sure that he made it really from producing as much as being an actor. Although when you're in a series,
that long. Yeah,
you're doing okay. So well, kudos to Michael Paul Chan, who is someone who most Asian Americans
don't know.
may not know, right? They'll
Right.
just oh, you're the Asian on TV that I see who plays this role, but I don't really,
He's not a name.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
he
that's
is now. He is now, man. We made him famous.
we made him. We made him. Hey, listen, Dan, thank you for going down memory lane with Danny Glover. Oh, hey, you're both
Oh,
Dan.
I want to add, at any substantial events, okay,
Yeah,
at SF State, if it has to do with ethnic studies, he shows up. Okay,
that's the thing. That's the thing about Dan.
anything having to do with ethnic studies, he shows up, and he's one of the best speakers at all of the anniversaries. He's been there. He's been a primary person, and unfortunately, the last time that I saw him was at last year at the passing of Terry Collins, who was Black Panther, as he would say, a member of the party, and a striker from SF State, and
Yeah.
the founder of KPOO, the
Oh
People's
yeah,
Radio Station,
he was the
Terry
founder of
Collins.
Kipu.
Yeah. He was. I
Okay.
used to run into him after the strike because the KPOO office or their station was on Natoma for a while, way back
Yeah,
in the 70s.
yeah, but
And
they moved that to
uh,
Darrow, I thought, right?
yeah, yeah. But definitely, I mean, he carried that on, and I mean, when I made donations, I was making donations to KPOO because of Terry. You know,
I like Capu.
and
Like,
and so so yeah, I really feel badly about loss, but Glover showed up for that, and he played the humble role, even though he was really tight with Terry. Other people spoke. There were other people that were closer, but he didn't. He didn't play a major role. My younger son kept on saying, you really ought to stop by and say hi. I said, not at this time. Not at this time. I was there with a couple of other strikers as well, but it was Terry was a really great guy, really great person, and anyway,
well,
so
so
yeah, Glover was always showed up, man, and
and he's going to be remembered Sunday at the Oscars. He's getting some kind of legendary award or something. I mean,
life achievement, maybe something like that.
yeah, he's let's see, Danny Glover. It's just that you would think that maybe he got something already, but I guess he I guess he hasn't. The uh, the Oscar he's getting is he's getting an honorary Oscar, and it's called he's receiving the Jean Herschel Humanitarian Award,
Okay, that makes sense.
and because of his decades of activism and service, let's see, it mentions Goodwill Ambassador both for UNICEF, the United Nations Development Program. It does not mention, I don't think in this article at least, San Francisco. Oh, yeah, it does. It says here, it says, you were engaged in activism before acting. In 1968, this is an interview. In 1968, you took part in a 5-month strike at San Francisco State University as part of the Black Students Union. This is what he said. We formed this amazing coalition with Asian students like Dan Gonzalez, Latinx students, and also progressive white students. I'm unequivocally a child of the civil rights movement. I witnessed my parents come of age and become involved in the postal union. I can remember watching the Montgomery bus boycott when I was 9 years old. Most of my extended vacations were to see my grandparents in rural Georgia, Jefferson County, where my mother was from, and I could associate where they lived with the campaigns. And so he remembered San Francisco State. This is in the New York Times a couple
Hmm.
of years ago. And then he also mentions American Conservatory Theater, where he did some acting, working at night, going to the ACT, American Conservatory Theater. I don't know if he studied there, but he went to see plays. And then he was working at the Office of Community Development at the mayor's office and the Model City program. So,
AC sponsored local programs and projects that went at community theaters, and so, for example, they helped to start an Asian American program after the Asian American Theater Company (AAT) was founded,
oh,
and that
yeah,
that actually came out of a course that we started at SF State in Asian American Studies. So, in fact, I and the author Oscar Peñaranda wrote the original um, course description and outline for the creative arts. It was called Filipino Creative Arts Workshop. And so it was so successful that the rest of the Asian American Studies faculty, particularly Jeff Chan
yeah,
and other members of the Chinese American faculty, said, "Can we adopt that to the Asian American nomenclature and have it for everybody?" And that was the beginning of what would eventually become AATC. And they were supported T. So a lot of people were
yeah,
doing crossover stuff.
oh, yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Now I'm looking at the comments, and there's some people say Danny Glover is a wonderful man. Uh, one guy says, although we never met, I lived across the street from Mr. Glover from 1966 to 1969, and so there are a lot of nice comments. Only 12 though, only 12 in the New York Times. So if you can go to the New York
So
Times, if you're
you're telling me I should go. Yeah, I am. I am a
oh,
subscriber, so I probably can get on
you
and
should
make
go.
a comment.
and make a comment about the San Francisco State strike because he talks about
He
the
was a biggie.
BSU.
Yeah, he's in the films. There's a lot of film versions, and we have a large archive of. There were only three major uh, networks at the time, and
Yeah,
but KTVU was actually an independent station that hadn't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There's only it
and they
wasn't.
and all of their stuff. The best stuff I thought was KRON, and then KPIX and KTVU.
Yeah.
Oh, and KQED. They had a lot. We got a lot of their footage
Oh yeah, yeah.
at SFC.
Yeah. They had film folks
Yep,
there
yep.
at KQED. I was at KQED back in 1971 or two. Actually, I was a student, some kind of student intern there. Well, in high school and junior high. So anyway,
Wow.
hey, listen, Dan,
My band played there in '72.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
wow,
we were on TV. Anyway, yeah, cool.
it
It
was
was
on
called Mundo, Mundo.
oh Mundo.
Yeah.
Ooh. No telly, just Mundo. Okay. And Gonzalez, I'll talk to you in a bit. Thank you very much for being on the program. Thanks for
Okay.
your
Thank you for having me. Boy, that was an exciting time.
yeah. Hey,
I
look,
don't-
I
this was
appreciate it.
273. Is that correct? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
273.
Dan Gonzalez, send it to your friends. And Dan Gonzalez, there he goes, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. And, this was just impromptu to talk about Danny Glover because Danny Glover is going to be honored. He's going to get that Herschel Award at the Oscars. So congratulations to Danny Glover, who was a neighbor of mine, probably when he was like 15. He didn't know it because I was like living on Fulton Street and he was on Grove. Actually, I was on the other side of the panhandle, so where his cousin Kenny was. Anyway, we need our exit music, of course. So that's our show for today. I got to read some credits. See the replay. Check out the column on ALDEF, aaldef.org/blog. My column on KBJ, Katanji Brown Jackson. See the replay of this on amok.com. Show 272. I also show some, all the others. They're there. Read the columns on ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Follow us on Twitter. Yeah. On Twitter, where at Emil Amok, where you can catch a show and you got to use your finger. That's the only thing about the interface. Well, actually, every time you want to catch this show, catch the recordings, just use your fingers and go, oh, he's going to talk about Harvard here. We're going to skip that. No. Emil Amok on Twitter. On Facebook, emilguillermo.media is the preferred place. You can also go to Emil Amok on Facebook, but it's a different page. And not as many things there. Let's see. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. For this, what I like to call I call it the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs. Like us, follow us, friend us on Facebook at emilguillermo.media. I think that's pretty much all the plugs, right? Yeah, because I do like to call this the micro talk show. Because it's micro. It's not like a 3-hour show or a 4-hour show. We only went like an hour and 49 minutes today. That's like, this is it, Emil? This is what you do? I write too. Email me. If you email, you can email Emil, EMIL, at amok.com. Yeah. And You got a swish. That's a swish. That's not some kind of Russian shell there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. You know, I talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson a lot today, and I mean that about how when I heard her roommate, Lisa Fairchild, talk about how Ketanji Brown Jackson was the person. She was the person who everyone went to, the role model, the go-to, who made you believe in yourself. I was reading something from Yamisha Alcindor on her Twitter feed. She said Ketanji Jackson was walking freshman year feeling down, or when she, at some point during her Harvard career, and an anonymous person, a stranger, came up to her and said, persevere. Persevere. So apparently she did have some doubts. And this is the lesson, I think, from watching the barrage of unfounded, really unpersuasive attacks on her at the hearing. You got to stand up. Stand up to that. And like Professor Dan said, with all due respect, right? With respect, Senator. Don't lose your cool. Don't lose your power. I just wish that when I was there, really 15 years before her, I wish there was that kind of support for some of us who came from different backgrounds on the West Coast, from, you know, my parents didn't go to college. We didn't have any money. They're on scholarship. I just wish that there was that kind of thing for someone like myself, because it would have made the difference if there was a friendly face, if there was someone there who said, hey, persevere. You can do it. Instead of, you know, the roommates I had who said, hey, Emil, you want to get a pizza? Sure, I guess, yeah. But I'm worried about this 10-page paper I got to do. So that was just the experience. And she knows that she is a person who is a beneficiary. A beneficiary of the civil rights story. That's what got me. That's what got, I said, you're there for us, girl. Stand on our shoulders. Don't wear spiked heels. God bless Ketanji Brown. The committee votes on Monday. Full Senate probably by April 4th. We could have an historic first by the Senate's Easter recess, April 8th. Let's hope. Let's hope. Persevere, right? That's it for me. Regular listeners of this show know that this is sort of like a nice little dovetail to what I call the loving kindness meditation. Loving kindness, where, you know, you feel like self-doubt, you feel self-criticism, you want to beat yourself up. You get, look, loving self-kindness, folks. Take this hand, put it here. Take this hand, put it. Just give yourself a little squeeze. It's okay. It's good. You belong. Hang in there. Persevere. Believe in yourself. Love yourself. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. and may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahau